Hello, my name's Lauren, and this is a video all about the sweater I'm wearing right now. Super excited to show you, and let's get started. So, like I said, my name's Lauren. I am a knitter, a crocheter, spinner, weaver, all-around fiber artist person. And I finally, as you can tell by the title, have completed my very first knit sweater. Now, this has been a long time coming and something that I've been really worried about ever trying to do, and I thought I would talk about this entire process and how it felt, the major things I've learned over the course of the last 2 months knitting this sweater, and how they might help you in your knitting journey. So, I have been doing some kind of fiber art since I was little. I first learned how to knit from my sister. I could only do garter stitch, and I was only making like maybe little squares. I don't think I ever finished one, because it was just a, ooh, look what I can do kind of a thing, but it went nowhere. Then I taught myself how to crochet when I was in middle school, and that's kind of what I did. I've made scarves, made hats, that kind of a thing, like little amigurumi animals, but nothing ever super extensive. But I really wanted to get more into knitting. When COVID hit and I was blessed with the plague, during my quarantine period, I taught myself how to spin yarn on a drop spindle. And ever since then, my goal has been to make my own hand spun yarn and knit with it so I could wear it. I'm really proud of the spinning that I'm able to do, and I want to be able to put that spinning into good use. I never really liked the fabric that crochet made as far as like next skin sweater type of a material, so knitting was my only last option. And over the course of the last couple of years, I could never figure it out. It never really made sense to me. And then finally, within the last year, everything started to click. My first official garment that I knit was a pair of socks that fit but not well. They're wearable, they work fine in boots, but they're not perfect. I went through maybe 2 or 3 single socks of knitting them funny, and then not finishing them to figure out all the components of them, and then I finally finished a pair of socks, and thus the journey of finishing knit garments began. That leads me all the way up to December of last year. So December, I finally said, I want to make a sweater. I'd been watching, Andrea Mowry, Taylor Earle from Wool Needles Hands, and all these other amazing knitwear podcasters that I wanted to finally put what I've watched into good use and make something. So I found a pattern on Ravelry by Ulven. This is the Barren Land sweater. By its Woodlands Knits is the design name, I suppose. And it was, I think, a fairly ambitious sweater for me to do as my very first one. But check it out. I mean, I finished it. I will, insert some maybe photos if I can figure that out, or pictures or something. Maybe I'll model it at the end for you. Yeah, we'll do that. I'm just filming this on my iPhone, so until I can figure out how to use my fancy camera, this is what we're gonna do for now. So, I cast it on December 7th of 2022 and started knitting. This is a top-down yoked sweater with color work. This is my very first color work pattern and my first sweater pattern. And I learned a lot over the course of the 2 months that it took for me to finish this. I was always nervous that I was never going to wear or like or be happy with any garments that I knit. So starting a sweater was always really like a big mental block for me. And I finally just said, you know what, if I can make a pair of socks, I could probably do this. So I, with the recommendation from Wool Needles Hands podcast, used Fisherman's wool by Lion Brand. It's somewhere. Where did I put it? Ah, I found it. So it is this yarn brand, Fisherman's Wool. I used 2 colors. I used Nature's Brown and the oatmeal color. I got 1 skein of the oatmeal and I got 3 skeins of the Nature's Brown, and that was more than enough. The Nature's Brown, I used 2 full skeins and then just a little bit of this 3rd one. And then for the colorwork portion, I used not hardly any of the oatmeal. I mean, it feels like you can tell that there's some missing, but it's still practically a full skein of it. So the Fisherman's Wool, which is a completely, oh gosh, everything's falling, 100% wool, non-superwash, I think was a really affordable and good choice as a first woolen sweater. I wasn't so super stressed out that I was going to waste a bunch of money on a project that I might not end up liking. So using Joann's coupon codes and things like that, I was able to get this for super, super cheap, which kind of made it mentally a little bit easier to complete, knowing that I wasn't wasting a bunch of money on skeins of yarn that are, like $20 each. Not that the yarn isn't good, but to have a first garment that might not work out, stressful. Anyhow, so I cast it on December 7th, and it started with the ribbing on the neckline, and then I was pretty quickly into the colorwork portion. I knit a size 8 going in because I did not, when I gauge swatched, I was really proud of myself, but when I did my gauge swatch, I could have done one of 2 things based on how I knit it. It called for a 4.5, I think, millimeter needle, and that's what I used, but my gauge swatch was super, super small compared to the recommended gauge. So to make up for it, I went up to a size 7 when I could have knit, I think, like a size 3 or 4 based on the amount of ease called for in the pattern. I have a 115 centimeter bust. That's what, 46, 44 inches, something like that. So I don't have that large of a bust. I'm more, girthy in the rib cage, but there's nothing here anymore. So I ended up just sizing proportionally up to a size that would fit instead of trying to figure out a different yarn and a different needle size. I didn't want the actual stitches to be super open. I wanted them to be pretty, solid. I didn't want to wear a fishing net. So, we figured it out. Gauging worked perfectly fine after I did that. I also made it a point to take my gauge swatch and throw it into the washing machine so my beady little eyes could see that if I ever dare to throw this sweater into the washing machine, I will regret it. Because that gauge swatch looked really bad afterwards. So if you are concerned that you're going to forget that your non-superwash woolens are going to get put into the washer, wash your gauge swatches. That'll be blazed into the back of your mind and stop you from doing that. So we started knitting size 7 and 8. Started knitting a size 8 based on the whole math thing. And my first big lesson is that reading a charted pattern had me slightly confused. I understood, the colors mean use the different yarn. And I could understand what the left-leaning or right-leaning increases, where they were and how to do them. But what I think I ended up doing was counting them wrong, because I ended up around this point after a row of increases with the stitches that are called for in a size 7 instead of in the size 8. So I didn't increase enough in one way or another. I'm not sure how that happened. If you have any thoughts, please let me know down below. I don't know if it was I only did an increase stitch when I should have done the increase in like, I don't know. We're still trying to figure that one out. But in the end, I still ended up increasing to a point where it still fits, so I'm not concerned about it. The only thing that it did is, and you can kind of see it if you are looking well, I'm gonna awkwardly stand up and get my boobs really like close to the camera, but oh gosh, hold on, okay. These kind of few rows of color work did not end up right in the pattern. You can kind of see that, like, they look funny. Now they're kind of even funny, but it's not right. Oh, where's the chair? There we go. So that was my first big lesson, is I increased funny along the yoke at some point. My floats are pretty good, I think. They're pretty decent. There's a few that are a little loose, but I haven't gotten caught on them. And they're not tight or pulling or anything like that. So I'm proud of that. Yay. So that was lesson 1. My increases were a little weird, so I need to learn how to read that charted pattern a little bit better. And I don't know if it's because of the way that that specific designer writes their increases or what, or if it's just a generic, I don't quite grasp charted patterns yet, which very well is probably the case. My second learning curve, I'm a little embarrassed by, but it is what it is. I discovered through the course of this sweater that I've been purling wrong my entire life. Yeah. So, and you can see it if you look at the short rows for the sweater are after the color work. So I'm gonna try and awkwardly get close again. Right in this kind of area right here, you can see it just a little bit, but when I pull, hold on. When I pull, you can see there's a portion where it's pulling in on itself instead of, yeah, right there. You can see just right where my fingers are here, where I was purling for the short rows, it pulls in instead of, you know, just expanding like it should. That's because I was purling and twisting my pearls. Woo, yay. So that was a fun discovery for me to make, but I made it. I figured it out and I learned what I was doing wrong. I am a continental knitter. I think that's largely because I'm so used to crocheting, but I just wasn't purling right. I thought I was. So I ended up learning the Norwegian purl, which is the most convenient for me. I like continental knitting because I don't like using my fingers to throw yarn in any which way. And what I've noticed with purling continental, some people still end up doing fingery things with their left hand, and it just doesn't work for me. So Norwegian purling is much more kind of like a hand wrist movement instead of a fingery movement, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, go look at it online somewhere. There's plenty of good YouTube videos on how to purl continental style. So that was the second major, like, hey, I screwed up that I noticed. The third one and final one with major screw-ups was where I picked up my sleeves when I moved it from scrap yarn to the circular needles. On the left sleeve where the wrap and turn stitches are from the short rows, I ended up not picking those up correctly, so I had some weird gaping in some of the stitches where those were supposed to be. Now I went back with, you know, yarn and fixed it, and you can't tell anymore, but I was like, oh, something's weird here. I don't know what happened, but I just kind of kept going. I'm one of those people that if I were to rip back more than like a row, it's gonna make me feel some kind of way and demotivate me and unmotivate me, inhibit my motivation for finishing a project. So for the 3 main mistakes that I made, I just kept going. They weren't so major that I didn't have a wearable piece, or that it didn't look super, super, you know, obvious. So I just kept knitting. And I'm happy that I did that. If I would have ripped back, especially in the colorwork portion, it would have been incredibly hard for me to start again. So, with that being said, I made one weird mistake, and it has to do with my dog. I don't know if any of you have dogs or have had animal products in your house with a hound dog in particular. I have a beagle. And I've learned my lesson once with my beagle and animal products. I work at Ren fairs and attend Renaissance festivals all the time, and I had one of those tails, the foxtails that you can loop onto your belt and wear. And she got a hold of that and teared it to shreds. I didn't think she would have a problem with wool sweaters. Well, surprise, she did. And she attacked my wool sweater when I laid it out to block. I had to re-block it and rewash it because she made a mess. Her natural instinct was coming out in my sweater. Anyhow, after I finished this, I finished it on January... We're going to round it back to January 26th is when it was completed as far as woven and ends and blocked and washed and all of it. I am super proud of it. I mean, that's all there is to it. I'm super excited that I finished it. The Fisherman's wool is warm. It is nice. It is definitely a rustic yarn. So if you are sensitive, I would probably avoid wearing it as something that's going to be next to skin. I don't have a problem with it. Where it gets the most sensitive to me is under my arms and along my sides. It's fine up on my neck and it's fine on my chest. I can wear it, you know, just with a tank top, or I'm more comfortable with a sleeved garment on. Like, I have a long sleeve shirt on underneath and I'm most comfortable now. It softened up with washing and blocking. But it's affordable and it is pretty and it's consistent. So I would definitely knit another garment with it, probably more for accessories or things like that, not necessarily another sweater. I still have those 2 skeins to finish up. So, I mean, that's a lot of yarn I could make something out of. Maybe we'll make a matching hat. I also know how to tablet weave, so I was thinking about making a tablet woven band to match my sweater. We'll see how that goes. But the big things that I learned from this process is, the age-old, lesson, you don't know until you try. I was so, again, concerned about making a full garment that would either be a waste of time or I would be upset with it, that I almost considered never trying. But then I did. And I learned, again, like you saw in the video, I learned so much from making this. And that process alone is worth it for me. There were parts of the process where I definitely needed to take a break, or I definitely needed to push through, but I listened to how I was feeling. And I kept moving, row by row. The techniques that I found most challenging, all I needed to do was find a video for it and follow the video. There was one area that I noticed I just need to, again, listen to a pattern. When I picked up the stitches on the underarm, I assumed that there were going to be major gaps based on how many stitches I was supposed to pick up when I cast on for the sleeves, but I was wrong. Shocker. Weird. The person who's never knit a sweater before was wrong. But I digress. So I ended up having to decrease way more than I should have. But it's fine. You can't feel it. Like, it doesn't feel super bulky or weird. And it doesn't pull in any weird way. But I did it. I made mistakes. I learned from them. And I want to say it was maybe Retro Claude in one of her videos There's a video I watched recently. Somebody was talking about their vintage knitwear items that they own and the charm and the human errors that you can see in them. And that video really made me fall in love with my own errors in my own knitted garments, because it shows that genuine learning process. Now I know that I purl wrong or was purling wrong, and I fixed it for other garments that I started. I learned from, picking up the arms wrong. So I'm really excited to see how I grow from here on. And I'm not intimidated to start more difficult pieces anymore. Like right now I'm working on a bralette and a raglan style cardigan. Never done a raglan before. Never done a bralette before. So both of them are learning curves every step of the way. And that's the best part of knitting and a knitwear journey, is that you get to learn and progress, and you can visually see that progression from start to finish. From the first lopsided scarf that I've ever made to what hopefully will be a really pretty shawl or something that I might be able to wear if I ever get married or something like that. It's meaningful in every step of the way. Not only do you get to wear what you make, but you get to learn from what you make as well. And that's super cool. So I hope you enjoyed this process. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope to make some more knitwear videos and do some other kind of fun things on this channel. If you have any thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns, leave them down in the boxes below, and I'll see you on the next one, I suppose. Go forth and knit. Have fun. Learn while you do.